Hi, this is Frid from The Joy of Syntax and English in Color with an introduction to German pronunciation. Okay, this is video 2 in my pronunciation series, and I promised that I would go over German consonants with you. Okay, as I said in my first video, I have assigned a picture to each German sound, and I will start with the consonants. I explained consonants and plosives in the first video, so if you don't know what plosives or consonants are, please go back to that video. I will put a link below in the description box. And I will explain the system again with the help of the first slide. Okay, this is Peggy the Penguin. And in German, the German word and the English word are quite similar, but not the same. So in English, it's penguin, and in German, you say penguin. Penguin. And the word penguin is supposed to be your language gym to remind you of and help you practice the sound P. So the sound in question is this bilabial plosive, this voiceless bilabial plosive. English has the same. And in my sound alphabet, this cute penguin represents this voiceless bilabial plosives, the p, 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 p. You have it in names like Paul, Paul, and Peter, Peter. So, der Pinguin, der Pinguin. So what I want you to do is I want you to go through the sound alphabet with me, and I want you to learn this symbol. And I want you to remember the spelling of the sound, and I actually recommend that you learn this as an image. So you see the penguin, and you learn this as an image because there is no one-to-one relationship between spelling and pronunciation. German, I think, is not quite as hard with regard to the discrepancy between spelling and pronunciation as English is, but it is harder than I thought it was before I started teaching. So I suggest you learn the spelling as you learn to spell this. You learn the spelling of the word as an image. You visualize the penguin, and you hear penguin, the penguin, penguin. And so for each sound, there will be an image. I tried to find animals as much as possible, but sometimes I wasn't able to find an animal. So I used a different picture that was very memorable. And so I encourage you to learn the sound alphabet. Because when you start speaking German or you read something or you mispronounce, and then you mispronounce a word, let's say you say Mule instead of Mühle, then I can say, no, it's not Mule as in Hut, but it's Mühle as in, well, in this case it was a bad, but let's say, I'm sorry, let's say üben. And you say Uben. And then I can say, no, it's not a back vowel as in Hut, but it's a rounded front vowel as in Mühle. And then you will effortlessly be able to exchange those sounds, and you will be able to say Üben. And because we practiced Mühle, you can then simply substitute the sounds, and we don't have to go through lengthy explanations again. It's a very, very helpful system. So it takes a little bit to learn the sounds and the words, but it's really worth it. Now I'm going to make a different video about standards. You know, there is standard American, standard British, and standard German, and then of course there are a host of other dialects and accents. And I've always wondered why Oxford and Webster, for instance, give us the transcription of each word that they list in their dictionaries, but the German Duden and Wahre, the two big German dictionaries, don't do it. And I was wondering why. I've always wondered why. And I think the answer is that standard German is really even more of an artificial construct than is standard English. BBC English or Standard British English or the Queen's English or whatever you want to call it is the dialect that was spoken in the triangle by, created by the three cities, Oxford, Cambridge, and London. And although it is an artificially maintained accent, it still is a real life language. But Standard German even though it comes very close to the German that's spoken in Hanover and Göttingen, is more of an artificial construct. And you know, there were words and constructions and were picked that are used in Germany and Austria and Switzerland and Luxembourg. And so, because the pronunciation in each of these countries is quite different, and because the pronunciation of German across Germany is so different, I think Duden and Weich didn't want to decide on a standard pronunciation. That's my theory. I don't know whether that's true. And so, but when you go to a Wiktionary, you can get one suggestion or sometimes two in transcription, and I think it's very helpful for learners. And so I've decided to use the IPA to transcribe the words. And of course, I'm using my German. My German is pretty much standard High German, but of course, it's not a pure language. I was born in Hamburg, raised by people from Göttingen. When I was 5, I moved to Aachen, where they speak very special German called, well, actually here in Aachen, it's called Aachener Deutsch or Aachener Platt. And they are actually, they're sort of two languages. There's the patois that I don't understand, and then there is the local language that's really heavily influenced by the patois. And so, and then there is the language spoken by people like me that have lived here for a long time, have been influenced by this language, but don't speak it at all. So when I speak German in Aachen, people think that I'm a foreigner. I'm not from here, clearly. When I go speak German in Göttingen, people say, oh, you sound like a Rhinelander, which to my ears isn't true, and to the ears of a Rhinelander isn't true. And when I speak German in other parts of Germany, people just know that I'm not from wherever I am. So I am at home in no place, basically, but I can communicate with every German-speaking person I meet. Now, I don't profess to say that I understand all German accents, far from it. When I moved from the States to the Palatinate, I actually could not understand the German that was spoken there. I had to get used to their version of High German, and I never was able to understand their patois. So, yeah, but they could always understand me. So that's an interesting thing. So I'm going to teach you my version of Standard English, and I've used that transcription. Okay, that would have been a separate video, really, but I guess I used this. I used this here. So I'll just go ahead now and pronounce all the consonants for you. So we start out with the bilabial, the voiceless bilabial plosive P, as in der Pinguin. Plural, die Pinguine. Okay, this is a voiced bilabial plosive. B. We have it in English as well, bear. And in German, it's either bear or beer. Some people say bear, some say beer. I say beer. And notice, the spelling is B, A umlaut, and R, but High German, Standard High German, just like Standard English, does not have a post-vocalic R, at least not at the end of a word. So we don't say beer or bier, never ever. We replace the R by a deep schwa, and it sounds like beer. And here's an interesting thing. Standard English, Standard British English doesn't have a deep schwa, but in Australia you hear it a lot. So I can give you the example. You know, the British English word water is pronounced water in American English, and something like water in Australian English. So Australian English has the soft T sound as American English, just like American English. It has the a little bit more of a closed main vowel, like British, water, water, water. And then it has the deep schwa that German has in Wasser. So German, Wasser, British English, water, American English, water, and Australian English, water. So I find that interesting. So the deep schwa is a very important sound in German. I'll have a whole section on deep schwa consonants at the very deep schwa vowels or diphthongs, actually. Diphthongs at the end of this course. But for now, I wanted to say that the A umlaut can be pronounced bear, but is often pronounced bear. And we have that in, some people say Mädchen, I say Mädchen. Some people say bear, I say bear. But the focal point here is actually this bilabial plosive, b, b, b. Der Bär. And when you form the plural, the R, just like in a lot of British English words, the R suddenly then becomes the beginning of the next syllable. And then you have, not a lot of British sounds, but sometimes that can happen, but actually ditch what I just said. So this becomes, what I meant is in English sometimes you have a linking R. So when a word ends with an R and the next word begins with a vowel, the R is pulled over into the next word and then pronounced. Like when you say, for instance, car and ride, you can say car and ride. And in German, that happens with the plural. You know, German and English plurals are quite different, as you can see here. And so Bär is the singular, Bären, the plural. So you hear the R definitely in the plural, but you don't hear it in the singular. Der Bär, die Bären. But the focal point, as I said, is the B. Okay, so these are our two bilabial plosives. Moving on. The voiceless alveolar plosive, T, as in English tiger and German der Tiger, der Tiger, der Tiger. And the plural is the same, die Tiger. You just change the article. Der Tiger, die Tiger. By the way, I bought the rights to these images from pond5.com. I love that company. They make it very easy to buy the rights for stuff. And I can use these 150,000 times, and then I need to buy the rights again. So thank you, Pond5. Okay, so moving on to the voiced alveolar plosive, D. Der Delfin. Now this is tricky. In English we have the dolphin, of course, with stress on the first syllable. And in German we have the stress on the second syllable, Delfin. Now it's an easy word for people coming from an English-speaking background, but because the stress pattern is different, it's hard again, and especially difficult for Germans because they want to they want to use the German stress pattern when they use the English version. So, dolphin, der Delfin, die Delfine. Now, I apologize for German plurals. Look, this is really incredible. We have Bären, Tiger, the same, and Delfine. But let's not worry about plurals. Right now, we're worrying about pronunciation, and we always want to focus on one sound. And so far, the sounds have been quite easy for people coming from an English-speaking background because they're the same. But there'll be differences soon. So, okay. Moving further into the back of the mouth, we have the velum, the soft part of the palate. And the velum and the back of the tongue can come together and close off the oral cavity. And then we have a velar plosive. And this is the voiceless velar plosive. And it's represented by this lovely, lovely animal, the kangaroo. Again, we have a similar word in German because both English and German got that word from from Australia, but we have different stress patterns again. Okay, in English you say kangaroo and you stress the last part of the word. In German you stress the first part, so it's kangaroo. And in English you say kangaroo, so you have kangaroo, you open up. But in German you have kangaroo, kangaroo, which makes it hard for each, right? So when you speak German, you don't open up as much and you have a different stress pattern. And when you speak English, you have to say kangaroo instead of kangaroo. Kangaroo. And you can either say kangaroo or kangaroo. I use the second here, the second version. Kangaroo. Plural die Kängurus. Das Känguru, die Kängurus. Okay, here we have the gorilla. And it's almost the same, but in English you have a schwa here, gorilla, and then you have a different type of R. And in German you say gorilla. You have the same stress pattern actually, what I was saying, but you have a different vowel quality and a different R. So gorilla, der Gorilla, der Gorilla und die Gorillas. And finally, we have something that English doesn't really have much. Well, Cockney English does, and Scottish English does, for instance, but Standard English doesn't really have it, and that's called glottal stop. You can stop the airstream in your with your larynx, with the vocal cords, by closing the glottis. And usually in German it's called a Knacklaut. And you use it mostly when a word starts with a vowel. So you say Apfel, Apfel, Apfel. And that's one of the sounds, I guess, that gives German the reputation of being such a harsh language, which personally I don't find, but well, I grew up with it, I guess. Okay, so der Apfel, die Äpfel, der Apfel, die Äpfel. Fricatives, moving on to fricatives. There we go. I love this picture. Der Frosch, frog, Frosch, 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 Frosch. And there, I'm going to make another video about that. I could possibly have used a different symbol. I don't need to make another video. I have a video on YouTube about the different R's in German. Now, when you start with an R, for me, it's always a voiced sound. Richtig. For some people, it's voiceless. Richtig, richtig. It's a fricative. Or it's an approximant, depending. Can be either. Or a sort of, yeah, an approximant is a sound. I didn't even mention that at the beginning. That is a sound where, similar to a glide, where parts of some organs of speech, like the velum and the tongue, come very close to each other, almost causing friction, but not quite. Yeah. I guess it depends. You know, I don't know whether glides and approximants are the same things, really. It doesn't matter right now. So when I say frosch, I can say frosch. I can really have devoicing. I can really have a voiceless sound there. And then strictly speaking, I would need to use a different symbol. But, and some people say frosch. They use a rolled R. So that's a little bit tricky, but I don't want to worry about this right now. Watch this other YouTube video, and if you have questions, write me an email. Frosch, Frosch. Und Frösche. Der Frosch, die Frösche. Frog. Der Wolf. Now this is a little bit tricky. This this symbol is also a letter, of course. So when you see the letter V, that's often pronounced like this, like in verraten, Vater, Vogel. But sometimes the letter V is also pronounced like Wolf, as in Veranda und Vase. Now, most words that are spelled with a V are pronounced with a voiceless sound, but not all. But the German letter, the letter usually is a voiced sound. It's usually the same sound that happens when we see in English the V. So I sometimes call it the VW problem. So when you take the English word vowel or very or available, it's always a voiced labiodental fricative, like Wolf. But this letter in English, of course, is the glide oo, as in wow. Now, Germans confuse that a lot, and there in Belgium, there are some German-speaking people who actually use a sort of mini glide here, and they say Wolf und warum. But Standard German pronounces this letter like this letter in English, and it's also the symbol that you use. So Wolf, it's a voice. This letter represents a voiced labiodental fricative. Wolf, Wolf, der Wolf, die Wölfe, der Wolf, die Wölfe. I already mentioned this sound when we practiced the difference between voiced and voiceless sounds. That's Fass, as in English, seal and sad and soup. Now, English pronunciation is very tricky and there are no hard and fast rules, but there's one rule, and it is opposite to one German pronunciation rule that I can tell you about. At the beginning of a word, not a syllable, but a word, the letter S in English always represents a voiced sound, as in voiceless sound, as in Susie, so, soup, sad. And in German, standardized German, the letter S at the beginning of a word always represents a voiced sound. So, Suppe, Susi, sauer. So it's 180 degrees different, but it's very reliable. At the beginning of a word, the letter S represents different sounds. I mean, a voiceless and a voiced sound. A voiceless sound in English and a voiced sound in German. And because we don't have this phoneme at the beginning of a word in German, I had to use this to represent that sound. So, oops, doesn't work like that. I wanted to underline it. Okay, so sometimes one word, so you have Fass und die Fässer. So this image represents that sound, Fass, Fass. Seal in English is der Seehund. So that's a voiced sound. And unfortunately, the letter Z or Z in German is Z, like in Zunge and Ziege. But the symbol Z is always a voiced sound, as in English zebra or zebra. So that's confusing to Germans. So you see, when you see this sound, this letter as a German, you want to go tss, but when you read the IPA or you see an English word, you have to go z. That's tricky. Der Seehund. Der Seehund. Die Seehunde. Okay, now we're moving into the palatal region. The tongue, the whole tongue comes very close to the palate. and the side of the tongue is touches the inside rim of the teeth. Shh, shh, almost. Shh, shh, shh. I think so. Shh. Yeah, it does. And that's the same sound as you have in English sheep. So that's Schaf, die Schafe. Okay. Sean and John, two beige sheep, and zwei Schafe, zwei beige Schafe. Beige has that sound in English, but in German, beige. It's beige. It's stimmlos, sh as in Schaf, beige, Schaf. Das Schaf, die Schafe. Okay, when you have the letter S plus a P, the S is pronounced like the sheep sound. So we have Spatz. Now in some regions, like in the north of Germany, I think they say Spitz and Spatz, but I'm not sure with that animal actually. They say Spitz, and High German says Spitz, like very pointed. Anyway, der Spatz, die Spätze. Der Spatz, die Spätze. And with S and T, we have the same thing. So we have not star, but der Star. Now here, Straß, stehen, in the north, people would say stehen, and probably they would say star, but I'm not sure of that. But High German definitely says Star. But the English word star, like he's the star of the show, that word is used as a loan word in German, and then most Germans pronounce it as ein Star. So der Star is the bird, und ist ein Star, then that's the star of the show, or a movie star. Sometimes I say ist ein Star. So some Germans, like myself, also use the same pronunciation for the bird and the movie star, but then I always get heavily criticized by my sons. Also, der Star, without an R, right? Star, with a deep schwa. Die Stare, 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 with an R. Das Genie, so it's the beige sound in English. In German, we have it in das Genie. We don't have that sound a lot at the beginning of a word, but in English, in this loan word from French, we do das Genie. That's my good friend Victor, by the way. Das Genie, die Genies. Der Specht. Now, this cute little bird does not represent the first two sounds here, but it's this, the sound represented by the H here, Specht. We have it in the word ich, for instance, ich. So you touch with the rim of your tongue, you touch the insides of your teeth, but you don't get close to the palate, especially not with the tip of your tongue. So for sheep, you press the tongue really close to the palate, especially the tip of the tongue. And for Specht, you press the sides of the tongue against the inner rim of the teeth. Ich, Specht, 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 die Spechte. Now for Buch, the velum, the soft part of the palate. Buch. You put a lot of tension in it. the back of the tongue gets raised. Actually, it's at, like when I say k, it's at the place where I produce the k sound. Buch. What? Oh, that's a different one. I'm sorry. Buch and Dach. So hang on. I have to show you 3 sounds. Specht, Buch, and Loch. Loch. So for Buch and Loch, the velum is involved in the back of the tongue. But the Loch is a little bit further in the back. Loch, and it happens in combination with different vowels. So Buch, Loch, Buch. I find it difficult to explain that. I have to think about that more. Buch and Loch, Loch, Buch, Loch, Buch. So actually, the Buch sound happens at the low. It happens at the same place where the one of the R's is produced. Like when you say re, which I will get to in a minute, re, and instead you make it a fricative, a voiceless one. Then you have Buch, Buch, and Loch is further in the back. Here's re, re, die re. With some people it's a voiceless sound, and then you could use a different symbol. Excuse me. But with me it's a voiced sound. Das re, re, und die Rehe. Das Reh, die Rehe. Der Hund, der Hund. We have a glottal fricative, but it's very, very soft. Hund, Hund. It's try to breathe with your through your mouth. Like you go to the doctor and he wants to listen to, or she wants to listen to your lungs, and you breathe in and out, and this breathing out, that sound, that's like the hello, 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 a little bit. It's not hello, there's no strong friction. It's just like a breathing sound. Hallo. Hund, der Hund, der Hund. It's very soft. Der Hund. Okay. Affricates. Der Topf, a combination of the penguin and the frog sound. Pf, Topf, 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 Topf. Die Töpfe, Topf, die Töpfe. Tss, tiger and Fass. Tss, tss, tss. Die Ziege. Die Ziege. Okay. Die Ziegen ist der Plural. Die Ziege. Ziege. Die Ziegen. Tschüss. We combine Tiger, Tiger und Schaf. Tschüss. Tschüss. Dschungel. We combine dolphin, Delfin, Dschungel, and Genie. Dschungel. Dschungel. Doesn't happen often in German. Der Dschungel. X. We combine das Känguru und nass. X, 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 x. X, x. I sometimes like to say that these are the hi-hat sounds. Like you go, tss, 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 you know, that you imitate the sound of a hi-hat drum. Tss, 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 tss. And then x, 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 x. Der Fuchs, der Fuchs, die Füchse, der Fuchs, die Füchse. Der Löwe. L. Now in English, you have a light and a dark L. And in American English, you only have the dark L. Like in British English, when you have lion, you can say lion and light. But in American English, you tend to say lion and light. And when you have the L inside of a word or at the end of a word, it's always dark, like in Paul and salad and mall and ball. Now, Germans often have a hard time producing a dark L, and so they say salad, Paul, Moll. Salad, Paul, Moll. But in German, in Standard High German, you have a light L. So you simply have your tongue very straight and relaxed in your mouth. The tip of the tongue touches the alveolar ridge, and you go la 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 la. Löwe, Löwe, die Löwen. Der Löwe, die Löwen. Die Löwen, die Löwinnen, die Löwinnen, Löwinnen. L, la la la, Löwe. We have one glide in German, and that's the ja sound. Der Jaguar, ja, 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 der Jaguar. Der Jaguar, die Jaguare. Der Jaguar, die Jaguare. Das Murmeltier. Now, when you have the R, a postvocalic R inside of a word, all kinds of things can happen. Sometimes some people say Murmeltier, Murmeltier. That's more in the north. Some use a schwa, Murmeltier, that's what I do. And some actually use a little bit of a velar R, Murmeltier. But I don't do that, I think. I think I say Murmeltier, Murmeltier. But the important sound here is Murmeltier. Then we have the hippopotamus in German representing the N sound. Nilpferd, das Nilpferd. Here's an interesting little note. Nasals in English are more sonorant. You hum them more. Mom. In German, they're not as sonorant and they're not as long. And yeah. And another thing is in English, you have no final obstruent devoicing, and in German you do. So when you spell something with the D, like the German word bath is B-A-D, bad, bad. But the D is pronounced like a T because it's at the end of a word. Well, in the plural, the D becomes part of the middle of a word, and then you voice it. So it's das Bad, die Bäder. And so in English, there is no final obstruent devoicing. Sometimes devoicing happens, but there is not this rule of final obstruent devoicing. And there's a huge difference in the quality of the vowel, depending on whether a voiced or voiceless consonant follows. I'll give you an example. The English word bad, compare that to the English word bat. And then, both words contain the letter A that represents the ash sound. But the quality of the ash is different in the word bad. It's longer and a little bit wavy. Bad, bat. Now compare the word bed, the thing you sleep in, and the thing that, this game, like you bet and you try to win money. I bet he won't come. I bet he'll win. So bed, bet. Bed, bet. Because the D is voiced, the bed, the E, becomes a little bit wavy and longer than in bet. And German doesn't have that difference between vowels in front of voiced or voiceless consonants, and all consonants are voiceless when they appear in final position. So that makes it very difficult for speakers of each group, because it takes getting used to. And so when in English, when you say mom, the quality of the vowel is different, as in different from the German mum. When you say mama, mama, so the quality of the vowels is different in English, and the nasals are more sonorant. So it's a more voluminous and more humming experience in English, I think. In German, the quality of the nasals is a little bit different, but the production of the nasals is the same as in English. Also, das Nilpferd. Again, we have a post-vocalic R in the middle of a word, and some people pronounce it and some don't. I say Pferd. I really use a deep schwa there. Pferd, Pferd. Das Nilpferd. Und die Nilpferde, Pferde. So the plural doesn't make a difference for the R because it's inside of the word. Der Orang-Utan, Orang-Utan. The orangutan, Orang-Utan, der Orang-Utan, Orang. Is in Schlange, Wange, Bange, many words. But I wanted an animal word to represent the And I didn't want Schlange because I'm afraid of them. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm working on it. Okay, that's it for today. I will talk to you in my next video about these front vowels. And I actually think I will just cover the front vowels and so that the next video isn't as long as this one. I hope you enjoyed this. You know, it's long, but you know, you can always take a break and eat something in between. Practice makes perfect. Enjoy these sounds, eat them, taste them, love them, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video.